I'd like to welcome each one here today for our meeting, and I'd like to begin the meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is traditional territory of Anishinaabe, Ottawa, and Mississauga peoples. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the agenda for the February 26, 2025 budget meeting as presented. May I have a mover? Councillor McBurney, Councillor Van Itterson, all in favor? Disclosure carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none. Reports 4.1 CL 2025 Community Group Donation Requests. At this time, I'll just say that we need direction on this. So are there questions here for CAO Lamb, please? Go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
The request we got from the Greenball organization, Wyatt. At first I thought I was for it, but then I kind of realized that, you know, on one hand, we're charging them fees to rent the ice, on the other hand, we're rebating them, giving them money, right? So in a way, we're giving them a break on ice time, and I just don't think it's appropriate to give one group a break on ice time and not others. So
yeah,
just wanted to throw that thought out there.
Agree with that. Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
This is regarding Alice Munro, $3,000. That money is to pay to help bring in authors. Well, if that's not going to happen, why pay it? Until they start doing that again, I think that we should take it to zero.
Okay. I'll go Councillor Van Hitterson and then Councillor Wright, please.
Yes, thank you, River. Yeah, I agree with everything. I think we can do the community betterment, $500 again, and $150 for the Plowmen's Association, and then we're still under the $6,000, and the rest didn't do any specific amount. So, or the elementary school fair $300 too. So then we're still under 6,000. So that is.
So I just before I go to Councillor right there, I just want to bring back the North Huron Community Food Share. We gave them $1,000 last year. I just want to make it known that the county gives $60,000 on behalf of all the municipalities. So that is given. That's their only grant that they give out of the county. So in a sense, I guess that goes right towards the one in Centralia, the big food share down there. So it's up to you people about presenting up here. I leave it in council's hands for that. And I think Councillor Wright was next, please.
Yeah, so just on with the Alice Munro, yeah, there's no need to budget anything for the Alice Munro Festival. But I would still like, if the rest of council is appreciative of the idea, that we could still set $3,000 aside on a budget to support cultural activities. Obviously, if nobody ever asks for it, we never have to spend the money. But if there's so I'm thinking about things like the Muskrat Festival, or say if there's startup festivals in Belgrade or Goliath, you know, it's hard for a startup festival to be so organized that they have a request for donation in by November 1st for the following year, right? Like, they really have to be thinking in advance. But my idea is we can budget through that. If it's never asked for, we never spend it. But it's because we don't budget for it, we can't actually, you know, it'd be more difficult to.
Okay, may I ask Carson Lamb to talk to that, please?
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. So one suggestion that I have is, if council is desirous of setting aside some funds for those types of events or activities, what you could do is, if you wanted to remove the $3,000 from the ECDEV budget, depending on how much you're allocating of your community partnership funding, you could use that for any requests that come throughout the year, right? So you have $6,000 that you budget annually. Depending on how many you're going to approve, you may potentially have money left over, and when those festivals come forward asking for funds, you have that pot of money to still tap into. One of the reasons I recommend that is because historically it's been confusing because council has the community partnership fund, but then there's also this $3,000 set aside within the ACTEV budget specifically for one group. But that approach would basically consolidate that into one GL, and this is the money available, right? So you'd have, depending on what you approve, say you approve 4,000 for donations today, it would leave you 2,000 to use throughout the year for other requests that come forward.
Okay, thank you for the clarification on that. And Councillor Palmer, please.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Yeah, I like the donation list that we have here, minus any sports group. So it adds up to what, $3,950 as it is from 24. That does leave a little bit of room for any latecomer or a cultural event too. So like last year, I think we saved, well, we have never hit the 6 yet, and maybe we could add a bit more to some of them to get it closer. You know, I'm not sure, more to the playground or something that's really gonna be used. But that's my take on it right now.
Are there any other comments with this before I turn it over to CAOM, please?
So I guess what I'm hearing from council is council wants to align with the amount of money you gave each of these specified groups in 2024, correct? So no, okay. Go ahead, Councilor Henderson.
Thank you. No, I would like to do the requested amount, like the 2,000 for the United Way and the 2,000 for the Playground Committee. Please, if that's okay for everybody. I would like to do the increased amounts for the United Way and the Playground Committee, the 2,000. And I also like the $1,000 for the North Huron Community Food Share, because the 60,000 from the county is going to all the communities in Huron County. And I like us as a community supporting our own food bank because they're always short.
It's quite close to the $6,000 mark. So if you have $1,000 for the North Huron Community Food Share, $500 for Blythe Community Betterment, $2,000 for United Way Perth Huron, $300 for the Elementary School Fair, $2,000 for the Huron County Plowmen's Association, and $150 $2,000 for the Belgrave Playground Committee, and $150 for the Huron County Plowmen's Association. So just quick math here. Yeah, you're just shy of 6,000.
No, but we never get any request. We haven't get any request. We always can find some money if it really is there. And then maybe the 3,000 for the Alice Monroe Festival could be tapped into, or some other economic development, depending on what it is where they are asking the funds for.
Sorry. You thinking 2,000 or 3,000?
We don't need, no.
No, but it's a new,
Well, there's 3,000 in the budget already, so I would like to keep it in just where the clerk suggested it to be. Yeah.
So I guess to clarify, my original suggestion was that you remove the 3,000 and use part of your 6,000 community partnership fund to fund any of those requests. But you would basically have, I think, about $50 left for those requests under that approach. So, yeah, unless council wants to leave the line in the ACTEV budget for festivals in general, as opposed to.
Feedback from council, please. Go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
I provide some $12 in few $1,000s can do amazing things for these festivals to be able to get up and on their legs so that they can be self-sustaining. And, you know, obviously from a regards to economic impact, right, it would help way more than $2,000, you know, you get the size festival. Perhaps then we should be looking at $9,000.
So to do that, you'd have to update your donations and fee waiving policy.
Only thing go ahead. No, go ahead.
My thought is with the muskrat, they've never asked for anything. I wish they would, but yeah. Then we have the rutabaga too. They could do the same thing. So, excuse me? I know, but still existing.
So could I make a thing here? Is there any chance that we could maybe cut back a couple of those higher $2,000 ones, take maybe 1,000 or 500 off of each of them? So we have a little bit left over there for, as Councillor Wright said, if somebody comes in and wants something, we have a little bit left over. Would that work? And going along with sort of what the numbers that you had near the start, see it? Yeah. Just a suggestion, how does that fit with council? Then we have a little bit left in there. Because I feel we shouldn't be taking this up to $9,000. We said before $6,000 and let's keep it there. So feedback from council, so our clerk Lamb can give us a motion that we're going to go with.
So if that's the case, your motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the following 2025 community group donation requests. North Huron Community Food Share, $1,000. Blythe Community Betterment, $500. United Way Perth Huron, $1,000. Elementary School Fair, $300. Belgrave Playground Committee, $2,000. Huron County Plowmen's Association, $150. And further, that council directs for the $3,000 budgeted annually within the economic development budget for the Alice Munro Festival be removed from the budget, and any requests for a new festival be funded through the remaining community partnership funding.
Okay, go ahead. Do the mover. Seconder, Councillor Van Henderson, all in favor? Carried. 4.2 CAO 2025-04 Blythe Festival Cooperative Marketing Budget. Are there questions for our EDO there, please? Ritu, if you'd like, come up, Ritu, and okay, at this time, take questions. Go ahead. Did you have your hand up?
Yes,
please?
I did.
Yes, go ahead. Councillor Van Henderson.
Thank you, Reeve. Rito, can you explain a little bit to me how you came to this decision and why you think we should keep it at the $5,000 and not expand it?
As through you, Reeve, so as per the request, so I met with the representative and they shared the cooperative marketing opportunities and the partnership, how we can indulge with them. So we found that the existing, like how we are doing it through the 5,000. So it would be right now, it would be the same. We would like to recommend, and also like in the coming time, we are taking external resources for doing the communication strategy and the marketing strategy for ourselves. So we would like to take their comments, how they are seeing we can move forward with this festival and promoting and doing the partnership with them. And regarding the like money, so like we are relying on that thing, and as per this, so we just recommend right now we should just move forward with the 5,000. Yeah, and as per like they are just providing 2-page marketing, like they are doing 2-page marketing of North Huron for the Blythe Festival. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions at all? Seeing none, go ahead. Clerk Lamb, please.
Through your worship. So there's the staff recommended motion from the report before council. So if that's, if council's supportive of that, I suggest a mover in a second.
Do you have a mover? Counselor McBurney, seconder, Counselor Palmer, all in favor? Carried. Finance 2020-2407 presentation of 2025 budget first draft. And I'll turn it over to department heads, but first of all, our CAO would like to talk to this.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so before councils today is the presentation walking through the first draft of the 2025 budget. But I just want to take a couple seconds here to commend staff for all their work in pulling this together. I know it was quite the unique circumstances this year, but yeah, just wanted to take an opportunity to thank staff for their hard work in getting it to this point. Annette is going to walk us through the first slides, and then kind of we'll approach it as a senior management team, kind of slide by slide. And what I would suggest, if there's questions along the way, no need to wait till the end. You can ask them as we go through those respective slides and respective budgets.
Okay, so at this time, we'll turn it over to Annette. And again, I appreciate all the work that's been done the last few weeks of this, and you brought something really good towards us. Go ahead. Thank you, Annette.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve Heifer. So presenting the township budget, first off, we'd like to start by saying it is always a balancing act where we are trying to recognize our opportunities for various revenue sources, our wants and needs from an expense perspective to present you with a balanced budget. A municipality, we are allowed to incur debt to pay for our large capital acquisitions, but we are legislatively required to ensure that we have enough revenue sources to pay for the expenses that we're putting before you to incur on behalf of the township. All right, just waiting for it to pop up. So as we go through and we determine what our revenue sources are, what our expenditures are, we are left with a net balance that we need to fund from our levies. That levy requirement from a total dollar perspective is then going to determine what the tax rate is that we apply to the residents within the township. I'm not going to spend too long on these slides. These are the topics within each of the departments, as you'll see presented today, from a functional perspective in terms of what services are being provided by each of those departments. To highlight a couple points for what was considered during the budget compilation this year, we did our best to determine the 25 budget by compiling the projected operating and capital needs for 2025. You will see that we also have presented to you some options for the capital perspective from what you are referred to as P1, P2, and P3 projects. P1 being those that have been highlighted and identified as current needs for 2025, and then P2 and P3 for suggested next steps in terms of capital projects. So cost to implement previous council decisions are also incorporated into the budget process throughout. We attempt to use any savings that are identified during this process to offset new demands and inflationary costs that come almost every year with every budget presentation. With respect to the fees and charges bylaw, that was fairly recently amended. That has been used as a starting point for the 25 revenues and expenses throughout a lot of the recreation department. The IT expenses have been allocated throughout different departments rather than being held within a single GL line. So that's a little bit different in terms of that presentation. And on a good news note, the 2026 is going to be the last year of debt repayments for the long-term debt that is currently held at the township. As we go through some of the capital slides and some of the capital projects, some of the factors that are considered and keeping it in line with the overall asset management plan, we have to look at topics and considerations such as aging infrastructure. What are the asset management objectives? What are the future development needs / wants? Levels of service, again, needs / wants, and then availability of federal and provincial funding. So as new opportunities arise and we have additional funding available to us, it is always good to be prepared with a list of projects that we can proceed with at any point in time should that funding become available. In summary, for the 2025 budget, we are presenting you today with a 3.15% tax levy increase. This also translates into an addition of $236,000 of additional taxation over 2024. And just as a point of reference, every 1% increase in your tax levy represents about an additional $75,000 worth of expenses. So the net tax levy requested for 2025 is $7,745,348. The next two slides are looking to give you a very brief synopsis of some of the highlighted changes between 24 and 25 budgets. So starting with the income, the revenue, what we are looking at from external sources is up, there is a net change, and there are some contributing factors listed to the side. And I would like to emphasize that these are just a couple points that have been picked out. There are a number of things that add up together to give us that net change difference. But just to highlight a couple of contributing factors for each of those changes, there was exceptional interest rates on our bank account balances during 2024. So for 2025, we tried to remain conservative, but be a little more reflective of what we are expecting actuals to be for the interest income during 2025, which is also resulting in some increased revenues from the 24 budget presentation.
Can I ask you a quick question? So,
Certainly.
the 2024 data, is that actual income or budgeted income?
The 2024 data, right now, the actuals are reflective as of the last point.
No, my question is on this chart, 2024, those values, or was that budgeted?
Budget,
Budget, okay,
yeah,
thank you.
budget to budget.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So the transfers from reserves, there's a detailed slide that we will go through to take a look at the difference in what we're looking to pull from reserves to fund capital and operations for 25. And then the external capital funding, there is a big drop from 24, and that is mainly resulting from the one-time event of proceeds from a sale of lands that occurred in 24. That is not expected to recur again. On the expense side, there is a decrease overall in operating expenses. And a lot of, one of the contributing factors for that is on some of the changes to the user fee strategy in the recreation programming. For capital projects, again, there is a significant reduction from a budget perspective and from 24 to 25, in large part to the Mill Street resurfacing. That was scheduled to be funded from the proceeds on the sale of those lands. So as the revenues have declined, so were the budgeted capital projects that we're able to complete with those. The transfer to reserve slides as well, we will see there's more details where it will show you how much is going to be allocated to each department for those reserve fundings in 25. The capital summary listing. I'm not going to go through each of these in detail. Would you like to speak to this, Carson?
So through your worship, so with the next two slides, these are basically your capital projects within the taxation budget. So user pay aside. So kind of how we're going to approach this is really just so council has the full benefit of what these projects are. The respective department heads are going to kind of give a high level overview of how what those projects are, and then how we're planning to be to funding them. Just to walk you through staff's process in determining P1, P2, and P3 projects. P1 projects, again, as Annette noted, those are projects we felt were high priority and needed to be accomplished in 24, or were P2 projects from last year that we have incorporated as P1 projects this year in the interest of getting in that process of developing multi-year budgeting plans for our capital projects. And the intent is that your P2 projects this year would potentially move to your P1 projects next year. So we are still doing a number of capital projects, despite the fact that we don't have the sale of land proceeds to draw on. Yeah, so that's something I think is important to note. But yeah, at this point with the P1 projects, they're noted on this slide, so we'll go through those, and then P2, those are ones to have on the radar, and P3, really what we identified with those are ones where we think there is an appetite for the community to potentially fundraise for. So doesn't need to draw on taxation. We think they're certainly important projects to the community, but we think that we may be able to tap into external funding sources if the community is willing to raise funds for those. So just to go through the P1 projects, just starting here, I'll turn it over to Kelly.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve Heffer. So the first line item there is the courts upgrade at the West Cast Community Complex. And council may recall at the last meeting that report was brought forward because this is funded through our advance funds. And we are now in the process of seeking requests for proposals for the courts upgrade at this space. Again, we will need 2 dehumidifiers at West Cast. And this is just what this will help with some of the wear and tear on our other equipment at the building. The amount is 120,000. We had 1 dehumidifier replaced at Blythe, and you'll see later on that we will have the second one on the books for this budget. The fire alarm panel at West Cast is dated and so needs to be replaced. The water filtration system for the arena needs to be replaced as well because there's a lot of silt buildup, and we need to make sure that we have the right systems in place to remove that. Bringing forward a $50,000 roof repair. This is over the next couple of months. Once the snow is gone, we will be proceeding with a assessment of the roof at West Cast. We have had some repairs to different portions of this building. And so I think what would be prudent for us at this time is to do an assessment and to provide some minor repairs, and then to proceed with a planned approach for ongoing maintenance and repairs of that roof so that we have a better planned system that can align with budget or perhaps some grant funding. As I mentioned, the dehumidifier at Blythe, so this past year we replaced one. We need to replace the second dehumidifier. We need to also overhaul the compressor at Wingham. This budgeted amount is slightly on the higher side, but that is to account for if they find anything with the overhaul of that compressor, that we have the budgeted amount to provide for that work. And I will turn it over to Chip to start to speak to the playground.
Thanks, Kelly. As far as the campground maintenance, some of this started in 2024, and there is a
Is your mic on there?
sorry, thank you, Reeve. I'll just back up then. For the campground, this was included in the 2024, but there's a carryover and some of the projects never got completed, as in a meter pit to accommodate a new meter and backflow preventer. There is some work to be done on some of the hydro boxes within the campground, as well as possibly looking at a gate that staff has requested. moving forward in 2025.
Then the next project is the town hall building accessibility design work for renovations and maintenance. And so really this project stems from the walkthrough that was done in 2024 from the Huron County Accessibility Advisory Committee. So there's a number of accessibility challenges with the building due to its age. So really the thought process behind this one is let's spend some money now on design work to have a grant-ready project that we could then use to apply for funds, right? So if we do the design work on what this space could be revitalized to make sure it's accessible, then when these grant opportunities come up, whether it's through the Enabling Accessibility Fund or other external grant funding sources, we put ourselves in a better position to be able to have success in receiving funds.
The next item is the Blythe Daycare expansion. And again, as you will recall, Council, from the last meeting, you provided direction for us to proceed with the request for proposals. And so those are now public, and we are currently receiving interest in that project. And this, the $350,000 there is funding that we have received through Huron County.
The next one is the Wingham Columbarium. As of now, the current columbarium that's there is half full. So the plan is always, once you get to around half full, is to start to think for the future and get a new one ordered to accommodate that. And this is normally funded from the sale of the niches.
Okay, Councillor Van Henderson, please.
Thank you,
Councillor Van
Reeve.
Henderson, please.
Thank you, Reeve Heffer. How much is the price of a columbarium? Is this something for in reserves that you build it up, or is this the total price for the columbarium?
The price in here for the 70,000 is the total price delivered and having a crane set it into place.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, actually, that brings up an interesting point. I hadn't thought of that. Maybe we don't do anything this year, but isn't this the kind of thing that generally you would pay for out of reserves and then sell the niches to build your reserves back up again, and then, you know, et cetera, as opposed to say fund out of taxation?
Oh, it is out of reserves.
Oh, it is from reserves.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is
Okay,
from reserves.
sorry.
To answer your question,
Yeah.
that is the plan
Gotcha.
to continue to put the sale of the niches to a reserve for future considerations.
So the next line is emergency services. We've got 3 items there. The first is the auto extrication equipment in Blythe. It's aging equipment. We're having difficulty allocating parts, so we've got a lot of downtime. The next piece in there is the replacement of Rescue 7 at 300,000. It again is an aging piece of equipment, 97 Freightliner. And then the third line is the emergency road closed trailers. Again, aging equipment that we need these signs for fires, weather events and things like that. And then I'll go back up to the extrication equipment. So that funding from local government is, in the Rescue 7 is our fire service agreement with our partner municipalities. And then the emergency road closure trailers will be coming from, if successful, with the emergency preparedness grant.
Thank you. Any questions for our fire chief? Seeing none, very clear.
I'll do the next one then through you, Reeve Heffer. There is a tandem plow truck. That is the final payment on that was passed through a motion last year in 2023 to span it over 2024 and 2025. It's 102,300 from taxation. A 1-ton pickup truck with a dump sander or dump box and sander, 150,000 from taxation. A roadside tractor, 130,000 from taxation. And those 2 items too we will be disposing of the current ones through Gov Deals, an auction company, and preliminary pricing or the costing that we will recoup is around 25,000 for the 2 of those items. Resurfacing Town Hall, Wingham Fire Hall parking lots, and by the library, by town hall, 250,000 from taxation. Road resurfacing on Park Drive, Alice to Shooter, 45,000. And these next ones are all from transfer from reserve. Another road resurfacing is Bolin, Carling Terrace to Dead End. And then the next one is Patrick Street, Edward to Minnie. Those three are all, or no, and then Farley Lane, Victoria to David, those are all within Wingham. And then Mill Street, do top coat paving there from the first phase that was reconstructed last year, as well as resurfacing on one block of Coombs Street. And whenever we do the Mill Street, there'll have to be a tender prepared for that. We will include that into the tenders, so hopefully get a little better pricing there too. And those first four that I mentioned, this is similar to what we did this year or last year in 2024 on Patrick and Edward and Charles Street.
Any questions? Go ahead, Councilman Henderson, please.
Thank you, Reeve Heffer. The resurfacing for Town Hall and Wingham Fire Hall parking lots and library, is that putting asphalt on it, or is this just making it nice and smooth again with gravel? Parts
No,
of the thing.
This would be to have them asphalted, to clean them up. And I believe there was some concerns and some comments come back from people using the theater on the condition of them, as well as I believe the accessibility committee was there and did a site visit and seen that there is, obviously when it's gravel, there is no accessible parking available. But once you would get it paved, then you can mark these out and designate them for accessible parking as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I guess through your worship, to add to Director Wilson's comments. So with that one, those on the previous council would remember, but maybe not those to this term of council. But so that was actually intended to be done when the Armories was demolished in 2021. However, there was more designated substances found in the Armories building as part of the demolition process that were required to be remediated. So it ate into the dollars that were to be used to finally finish that project and pave the parking lot and put the lines out there. So yeah, with large events like theater performances, there's just been a lot of feedback that it can become quite hectic because there's no lines and cars are getting blocked in and that kind of thing, as well as yeah, no accessible parking spaces designated there because it's gravel currently. So that's kind of the history on that one.
Thank you. Go on.
So here in front of you now, you will have the P2, P3 capital project listings. Would you like the departments to speak to some of these in a little more detail at this time?
I think that would be fitting right now, sure.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, I'll start with the first couple. Mill Street, as I commented before, last year we did the phase one of it, and this is noting that it'd be a P2 to continue on with the phase two of it, which is the balance of the 3 blocks that are remaining. And then in the following year, 2027, would be to top coat those that are included into phase two, those 3 blocks.
The next item is rubberized flooring at Westcast. You will also note 2 items down is the rubberized flooring at the Blythe Arena, and staff would recommend that if we were looking to prioritize that the rubberized flooring at Westcast is in poorer condition than Blythe. However, the flooring at the Blythe Arena could be phased out because of how with the layout and of the change rooms, that might allow for phasing of that project. The Wingham ball field light replacement. So what the challenges there is a light that is out. And so we're trying to minimize some of the excess costs with having to bring a truck in and replace the light, as opposed to bringing in some more green energy to this space. And then I've already spoken to the arena rubber floor, so I think ladder is you.
So then, on ladder two, which I brought to your attention at a previous council meeting, it's due for replacement in 2026. Again, it's a aging piece of equipment. And I will be bringing information forward probably end of Q3, early Q4 on, steps to take for 2026.
The next item is the FE Medill Crosswalk. This is related to putting in a pedestrian lit crosswalk, similar to what's already been installed in one of the other streets near the schools in Wingham, as well as it would be audible. And we would be putting in the tactile structures too into the sidewalks, so people know as they come up that it's a crosswalk and where the push buttons are.
Okay, may I ask a question to you, Director
Yes.
Wilson? So putting in this one light replacement up at the top of right by the school there, will one do it then? Like one will cover for our safety?
As
That-
that's my understanding, Reeve Heffer, that by placing this one in, as I believe there may have been a crossing guard there previously, so this would be sufficient for that then.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is the sound system at Westcast, which is the sound system within the arena. And so it is identified as a P3 project. Since this report was published, I was able to get a quote that a sound system replacement would be about $45,000 for that space. The next item is the skate park replacement at the Blythe Community Center, and we have a kind of a mobile skate park. Right now, the quotes we're getting in for a skate park replacement is around $207,000. The next item is the digital sign. So that would be the sign on the building at the Blythe Arena. And we do need to replace that. That sign is not functioning any longer. And replacement value for that would be around $50,000. The soccer fields at the Blythe Campground, I'll speak to that unless anyone else. That is a carryover from the 2024 budget. Is there anything else to provide there?
Yeah, so with that one, so council will recall that Director Burtney, when he was here, brought a report to council, and council provided direction for the Blythe Kids Club to work through the process to fundraise those dollars and potentially partner with a community group to issue donation receipts. So at that point, at this point, council has provided direction for them to fundraise for that. So kind of again, in keeping with our methodology of P3 projects being ones that could potentially be fundraised for, that's why we have that there.
And the final item is the digital sign at the Westcast Community Complex. So that is the sign that is on our property there. Both the digital sign at the Westcast and the digital sign at Blythe cannot be repaired. We have tried, the technology for those signs are out of date. And so a full replacement is required for signs at both locations.
Thank you. We'll go to questions now. We'll go to Councillor Palmer, then Councillor Van Henderson, please.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. Director Stice, the sign, well, I guess both signs, can they be operated from within, to change up dates and what's on? And is the other one at Westcast, that's the one at the road primarily?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, yes, to all of your questions, they can be controlled from within the building and allow us to update it very frequently, which is a help for the community.
yeah.
And yes, it is, the one at Westcast is the one close to the road. I think there is new technology too that would allow staff to make changes remotely from their phone, allowing for even better communication should there be outages or closures required.
Follow-up,
Yes,
please.
follow up, please.
The Belgrade or the Blythe ball diamonds, if memory serves me right, there could be a few light stanchions that are maybe leaning. Do you know the condition over there? And is there thoughts of fixing or replacing anything there?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer. I don't have an understanding of the status of the lights, but I can certainly turn our attention to that as we get into the spring with the opportunity for some upgrades or some fixing of that space.
Councillor Van Hitterson, please.
Thank you, Reeve. The cost for the skateboard park, is that for a permanent or a mobile park or area?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Van Henderson. My understanding is that's for a mobile skate park.
So the
It
same,
it would be the same,
a replacement from what is sort of there right now.
correct.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions over the past? Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Just curious, I assume it's through the asset management plan, but how do we actually decide which streets get resurfaced? Is there, a rating system, of the ones in worse shape? Because, I know there's streets like Francis right out here, which are in very poor shape, right? So I just want to get an understanding on how the decisions are made.
Normally the decisions are made, we consult with the staff on the amount of maintenance they are putting towards them, i.e. like coal patch and that type of work that goes with it, the amount of traffic that are on them. And that's really the criteria that they come to me and would say, or to the director, and would say that if you're going to be doing some streets, here's what we would recommend to do these blocks this year.
Thank you. I know it was really appreciated, as was mentioned earlier, what was done last fall. There are a lot of positive comments and that, so doing a little bit each year really helps out. Thank you. Any other questions for any of the directors here? Okay, go ahead, Carson.
Yeah, so if there's nothing related to the capital projects within the taxation budget, this is the point where we'll move in to the operating slides within that taxation budget.
So we'll begin with the general government. Most of the revenues for the general government budget are remaining consistent. Our interest income has been increased as previously mentioned, but that is wholly dependent on external interest rates. We have some OMPF funding, an increase over 2024 of 140,000, and some additional OSIF funding that we are eligible for in 2025. Some expenses of note are the physician recruitment that has been budgeted, as well as the transfer of those funds from OSIF directly into reserves for 2025.
So the next slide is the council budget. So just the intent of this slide is really to highlight I guess the more significant variances year over year. So the budget reflects the 2.1% COLA increase to council's honorarium and meeting pay as required under your council remuneration and expenses bylaw. It also includes your training, travel, and workshops figures, which are set out in the remuneration expenses bylaw. So each member has $2,500 for training, travel, and workshops annually, as well as the $2,500 which can be used for joint training for council. $10,000 is in the budget for legal. The costs of the legal budget for council vary greatly for year to year, depending on what's experienced through that year. For example, integrity commissioner expenses, your legal expenses, that kind of thing. So $10,000 we felt was a reasonable number. So $6,000 in community partnership funding for your community donations. So we had the separate report we've already dealt with for that. And then the building supply and maintenance, contract services, and electricity expenses that are noted in that budget are all your expenses related to this space, right? So your contract services is basically our portion of what we're required for under that agreement, which is certainly nominal. So your next slide.
Go ahead, Councillor Palmer, please.
Thank you, Rafe. Annette, we have the 20,000 for members for training and what have you. I was looking back, we never seemed to reach that. Is it just there as a, as a just in case amount, or should it be reduced?
So Yeah, through you, your worship, to answer Councillor Palmer's question, that figure is based on the provisions within your council remuneration and expenses bylaw. So if you wanted to reduce that, you would have to update your council remuneration and expenses bylaw. So I guess in 2023, one of the changes that was noted was that those funds wouldn't carry over for each individual council year after year. That's how it was originally structured, but so that's an example of a counselor who didn't go to any training, travel, or workshops in 4 years would have basically built up funds for 2,500 times 4, right? So we changed how that was structured. So now it's basically you use it or lose it annually, and if you don't expend it, it would just go into the general surplus or deficit at year end. So is how it's set up.
Thank you.
Yeah, so your next slide is the admin budget. So the salaries, so that includes the 2.1%, but really the major change is related to or that increase reflects the costs incurred because of some of council's decisions related to those former employee transitions. So subscriptions and memberships, that's increased by 50,000 for a payroll system upgrade. If council wants further details, Annette could certainly speak to that, but there's a ton of room for error and also a ton of room for improvement with our payroll system and how we process payroll. So it's identified as certainly an efficiency to be gained by proceeding with a different payroll system. So transfers to reserves. So of those 20,000 go to the IT cluster server. So that's kind of what we set up a couple of years ago so that we didn't have such a huge hit when the IT cluster server is required for replacement again. It's usually around $100,000. So every year we've put away $20,000 to minimize the spikes in impact, as well as the $6,000 that gets budgeted annually for the election. Inspections and contracts, that's the temporary clerk services wages, basically helping me kind of keep the clerk's department portfolio afloat while I kind of am doing double duty here with the CAO. So that's basically captures 2 days per week wages for those temporary clerk services. IT budget. So the overall IT budget in admin, as Annette noted before, you're going to see a reduction in admin because we did a cost splitting throughout the budget, so it's more tied to each function and facility, so that it's a lot easier to track for asset management of a replacement of a router or an access point is specifically tied to this facility because that's where the access point or router is located. And then the HR recruitment. So that has increased year over year or significantly this year, and that is really to reflect council's decisions to use an executive recruiter for a couple of those positions. But the other portion of that is your annual HR recruitment costs, which we've kind of kept steady year over year.
With that, is there any questions for CLM on anything there? Okay, go ahead.
So the next budget is the town hall theater. So Denise is here today, so she can speak to that one for you.
Thank you, Denise. Go ahead.
Oh, so, okay, sorry, I was just waiting for questions. So the numbers that I actually added to get the 12,200 revenue is actually close to being completed. I was given the go-ahead from the third party to book private and rehearsals and non-private performances until the end of June, just so we can keep the conversations going with the third party. But that is, we're popular. So it usually dies down in July and August. So I asked that we at least go till June. If things keep going, then we will go into the fall to keep booking, but we are more than right on track for the theater.
Great, thank you for the update. And any questions for our coordinator, please? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer. Oh, sorry, I saw your hand go. Okay, no questions? Great, thank you very much. Thank you.
So the next few slides are on the fire budget. This slide here, it's just a high level. But I want to ensure you as your chief, I'm going to be fiscal responsible and be accountable for everything that happens within the fire department. Some of the things I'd like to highlight is we do have to modernize some critical aging equipment, the investment in training and personnel. And I want to highlight that the continued fire agreements help offset the budget with their partner municipalities. On this one is the revenue. We do have a cap on our fire capital, which if you remember from the December 16th, I brought a report with the extension of the fire agreements where we're only going to spend so much this year. It was 360,000. And within those upgrades, like I said earlier, it's a replacement of Rescue 7 in the Blythe station. And it's to update the aging auto extrication equipment, which is called hydraulics now. Everything's battery. And it'll mirror the set we brought in 2024 in the Wingham station, which also streamlines emergency response when we're out there doing things. And as per the agreements, the $100,000 transfers to reserves. The next slide is the operational enhancements. So you'll see on the wages and benefits, that's to reflect the position created in 2024 for the full-time fire chief. And under the training and travel, we increased that by $4,000, and that's to support the mandatory certification that the province implemented, and that due date is July 1st of 2026. And overall, meeting these lines will help with the overall emergency response capability within the community. Equipment repair and maintenance. That's the title of the slide. So under the clothing, uniforms, and bunker gear, I brought it to your attention where we had the broken helmets. So we allocated $12,000 to replace the helmets, and we did that over 2 years, 2024 and 2025. The maintenance realignment was just basically cleaning up the budget lines from equipment repair and maintenance and the contract and inspections. We just allocated them as one just to make the GL coding a little bit easier and making sure the funds are going to the right lines. Fire prevention, as you're all aware, prevention and education is our first line of defense. And in 2024, there was the elimination of the part-time FPO position, and that's been absorbed by the fire chief and the deputy fire chief. And as Annette mentioned in the earlier slide, our fire payouts are scheduled to end in 2026. So this year we have a payout of $72,190.68. And that's for the dissolving of the fire board.
Okay, at this time, are there any questions for our fire chief? Go ahead, Councillor Van Henderson, please.
Thank you, Reeve Heffer. Will the fire payouts for 2027 be about the same amount, or will they go down or up?
Sorry.
The fire payouts for next year, will they be the same? Because this year is the last year, and the next year there will be another one.
I think I'll turn that over to our treasurer on that, if you don't mind. I would think it would be right around the same amount.
Okay.
Yes, through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Van Histrom. There is a slide a little later on that details the loan and debt repayments that we can go over in more detail
Thank
when
you.
we get to that slide. The total for 2026 is just going to be slightly over 44,000 for the remaining payments.
All right, thank you.
No other questions for our fire chief? Excuse me. This time, go ahead, CO Lamb, please.
Yes, so the next slide is your policing budget. So this budget is a lot cleaner to understand now that the changes have occurred. So really the budget reflects the 2025 policing contract. So that's provided to the township by the Ministry of the Solicitor General. That's for the entirety of North Huron. Also in that budget under expenses, there's $4,300, and that's North Huron's portion of the Huron OPP Detachment Board expenses as the province has moved to that detachment board model. And the remaining showing in miscellaneous revenues, that's reflected as refunds that the ministry has advised that we would be getting due to over collection of the police board contract.
Okay, and go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about what's going to happen next year, right, for our policing costs, because, you know, the base amount is gonna go up and we're not gonna have a refund next year, right? So, I mean, the delta on both of those, we could be looking at $250,000, $300,000 hit to taxation. So, I mean, I don't have a strategy for that. You know, I guess the refunds we could put to reserve and use them over several years, but it concerns me what we're gonna see in 2026 because this refund is just a one-time softening of the blow, right?
Yeah, through you, your worship, Councilor Wright's comment is certainly noted and valid. I think with this one, the first line of attack for this one is certainly seems to be advocacy. So I know with this, it's not like North Huron would be the only one to experience significant increases. So working with our other neighboring municipalities to see about reducing significant spikes. So we do have Councillor Van Hittersum who sits on the Huron OPP Detachment Board for North Huron. So I would certainly think that we should be using that as a channel as well to communicate our concern related to large increases year over year with the policing costs.
Councillor Palmer, please.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Yeah, as other years, couple of us have always brought up that East Wallinash, because you're charged by assessment, the farmers in East Wallinash pay exorbitant amounts. Is it possible that this, the full fee could be just divided by the households of North Huron equally?
Yeah, through your worship, to answer Councilor Palmer's question, I'm certainly not a finance expert by any means. It's not my area of expertise, but my understanding is that we don't have the ability to do that. It's something that, with our director of finance that we can look into here. But based on past research, our understanding was that that wasn't necessarily a possibility, given the as well as the transition from with the OPP to move away from contracts, and it's basically here's your bill. But yeah, so it's certainly something that we can look into with the director of finance as she's kind of continuing to brief herself on the files of the municipality.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Van Henderson, please.
Yeah, the OPP, this is for the OPP billing too. The OPP has a different way of billing. They do by properties and not by total assessment. So I would like to know why our municipality can do the same way of billing per property instead of on total assessment, because there's so much farmland everywhere that and farmland, the value of farmland is increasing way more than the residences. So there's an exorbitant pressure on farmland that's providing our food for the police costs, the way it's calculated right now.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, Councillor Van Hittersum, we will look into that and find out what our legislative options are and bring that back to council. And if there are options in terms of how to distribute that cost throughout the township.
Thank you. That would be very much appreciated.
So at this time, we're just waiting for our CAO to
Sorry,
give us a motion.
point of order, is that not something that should go through a notice of motion? We're asking staff to do a report, right? So should that not go through the notice of motion process as opposed to this?
Yeah, through your worship, it's entirely how council wants to handle it. It's a bit of a gray area. Yes, it's not necessarily directly tied to the budget. It's more tied to the billing. So, yeah, it's really all how council wants to handle it. I'm fine with a motion here, if that's how council wants to proceed. But if I guess through the chair, if he feels a notice of motion is more prudent, then that approach can be used as well. And ultimately, it'll get you to the same outcome of putting the vote before council, whether it's something that's of interest in a report coming back or not.
Yeah, because I mean, I understand, I hear the concerns, but if we start chipping away to say, well, okay, yeah, this one thing doesn't benefit this one group as much, so it should be divvied up, like where the end, right? Like I've never had a fire truck come to my house, so you know, should I not be paying any fire stuff, right? Like I just, I see this as either we're all in and sharing everything together or we're not, right?
Go ahead, Councillor Anderson, and then I'll go to Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Reeve Heffer. This is not about sharing everything together. This is about the disconnect between how the police is bringing up their billing towards the community instead of how we do it. It's not the same amount, the same way the police is billing the municipality instead of putting it on everybody. And then if we are going to talk about that, we should talk about a user pay. I've never had a truck to my house too, but that doesn't matter at all.
Okay, we'll go to CAO Lamb first and then to.
Yeah, so through your worship, yeah, so just to keep the discussion today specifically related to the budget, I think, yeah, maybe this is more prudent for a regular council meeting discussion. So I think a motion's already drafted here, so if either councillor wanted to put a notice of motion forward for the March 3rd meeting, we can handle it through that process.
Councillor Palmer, please.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Yeah, I'll make the motion that staff investigates the different ways of how billing can come to the resident.
Well, yeah, so just to clarify, so you, if we're going through the notice of motion process, you'll file your written notice of motion.
You know what, it totally relates to what we're discussing though. That's why I say that, well, why not? It's easy to ask. I understand what you're saying, Councillor Wright, but it relates to, if it's something a little bit off, then yeah, you make a notice of motion, but I don't know, I just see it as it's part of this discussion.
Well, it won't affect the budget one way or the other,
No.
correct?
No.
So then why is it
no,
part
but
of
it
this
affects
discussion?
the people that pay the taxes.
I know, but we're discussing budget today, so it's not gonna change the amount that North Huron puts into its budget for policing, right? So
yeah, and through your worship, and that was kind of the thought process behind it not being directly tied to the budget, right? Ultimately, that the direction for that report doesn't change the total numbers that need to be in that budget line. So, yeah, I think it's more prudent to deal with that through the notice of motion process, and we can discuss that at regular council.
Okay, thank you, CAO Lamb. Okay, at this time, okay.
Yeah, so the next budget, very straightforward, Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. So this figure reflects the up-to-date levy information that we received from MVCA in January. So they provide us that figure and we incorporate that as part of the budget.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for MVCA? Seeing none.
This next slide is building services. It'll be a joint slide between myself and CAO Lamb. The building budget is required to net zero under the Building Code Act. Under the CBO wages and benefits, you'll see the 60% and the other 40% is done through the bylaw. You'll see in the IT budget line, that's software, the cloud permit software. And what that does is streamline the building permit process through the different departments and agencies involved. Property standards and bylaw, that's like I just said, the other 40% comes out of there. You'll see under inspections and contracts, the municipal support service agreement, $20,000 allocated for that. And myself and CAO Lamb will be bringing a report to council shortly as that contract's expected to expire. I believe May 1st. Oh, sorry, did I get ahead of you there? Oh. Animal control, we have $5,000 budgeted in there for the municipal support service. And that's looking after animal control matters, covers all the administrative and operational costs. Under the revenue drivers, we have the document agreement, where that gets rid of the actual physical person going around checking on dogs. And then for the impacts of that, I just have a line in there. We'll just continue to evaluate this program and the operational efficiencies for further optimizations. And emergency management, it's basically unchanged from year to year. We have $3,000 in the training budget this year, and that's ensuring that all our staff and council are up to date in the emergency management, and we can save costs there just to do in-house training. And then we have another $2,500 in the mapping initiative, and that's a joint initiative with Morris Turnberry. to do the new flood mapping with the, to reflect the dam removal.
Okay, any questions at all from any counselors, please? Seeing none, we'll carry on to Public Works.
Thank you, Reeve. I'll do the next few slides. The Public Works, the materials and supplies, you'll see that they've been reduced throughout to align with actuals. Additionally, move materials and supplies costs for calcium and dust control, as well as crushing and spreading the gravel to inspections and contracts line. This is just to make sure that they're coded to the proper GL. Bridges report under the contracted services not required in 2025. It was done 2024 and will need to be done again in 2026. It's every 2 years. Most budgets reflect a change from materials and supplies to proper coding, repair and maintenance, or contracts.
Okay. Any questions? Oh, I just see how fortunate we are in North Huron not having a lot of bridges, and that is great hearing some other areas where you know how many times you have crossed the Saugeen or whatever. So no questions for this. We'll carry on to the street lighting.
Okay, street lighting. This budget was developed based on actual revenues. Expenses are based on hydro increases and minor repairs that will be required. Street lighting budget reflects job costing with more accurate data based on the 2025 wages. Actuals cut wherever budget was not fully spent annually.
Thank you. Seeing nothing, carry on, please.
Next one is storm sewer, better aligned with operating costs from previous years. Contracted services lines for Wingham was 13,000 and Blythe's 10. This is for catch basin cleaning, which is an annual service, and we try to go in and do a group with the county and get a better pricing that way.
Okay, looks all right. Go ahead.
Okay, waste revenues based on previous years with slight increase due to the increase to the bag tag costs and anticipating tipping fee revenue increases. Curbside collection process recycling 25,000 includes the first quarter cost for 2025 and reflects reduced contract costs with a shift to the producer responsibility. A buffer was left in to reflect the required costs for the ICI collection, which is industrial, commercial, and institutional. The Wingham landfill, last year, the grinding didn't get completed, so there's 37,000 in for this year to do the grind the brush that is gathered out at the Wingham landfill. And then there is a $50,000 allocation for PFAS studies and investigations.
Any questions in the waste department there? Seeing none, go ahead.
Okay, the next one is cemeteries. Columbarium, as we previously discussed, purchased from the Columbarium Reserve, shown under capital. Need to ensure reserve funding is being maintained, contributed through sales of the niches. Inspections and contract lines realigned with machine rentals to reflect actuals in that area. And Blythe is the same, just allocating the inspections and contracts to machine rentals.
Thank you. My only question in there on the third point there of inspections and contracts, is that when you come in and do the backhoeing, like you're changing have those prices more in line?
That's correct, Reeve. Whenever they have to hire in a backhoe to dig some of the graves.
Okay, thank you. Seeing nothing else, we'll carry on to Children's Services.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I want to acknowledge that Interim Manager Tiffany Sipe is in attendance, should there be any specific questions to operations. So historically, the main center daycare located on William Street has realized an annual operating deficit, and we offset that with our other programs, including early learning, before and after school, in order for us to be able to produce a balanced budget within the childcare department. Our budgeting, our budget for 2025 is based on what we understand as actuals. And the majority of expenses within this budget are to cover our full-time and part-time staff wages. We are anticipating a lot of change and growth within children's services over the next year. So on December 20th, 2024, the provincial government introduced a new funding model to improve financial stability for all of our programs. And so we, along with the county and the province, are still trying to realize what that looks like and how that will be budgeted for. So we budgeted based on previous years in order to provide something to council. One of the other changes last year that we will continue with is was to achieve more stability with staffing in our before and after school program. Typically, we have challenges hiring for that position because it is a split shift. Upon council's direction, we took some part-time positions and created 2 full-time positions that incorporated our early on program as well as before and after school. And to date, I would say that things are going quite well with that change. Those early on positions changed to 2 positions with a 45-55% split of their duties between with early on and before and after school. And then again, we've spoke to this, but we do are looking forward to the Blythe Daycare expansion with some startup funding through Huron County. You will note in our 2024 budget, there was a miscellaneous revenue of $23,298.41. And that was fundraised revenue from staff and parent events over the last number of years. But based on the donations and fundraising policy of council, this money was placed in a reserve for future use. The intention at that time when it was fundraised was for playground improvements. We do have full and part-time wages split amongst the programs, just as we work to align the budget under this new funding model. And wages are based on operating at full capacity. So sometimes they seem a little bit high, but that is so that should we achieve full capacity in some of our programs, that we are ready and able to serve families in that way. We don't always achieve full capacity, and that's based on interest, particularly in our before and after school program. But we want to be ready and able.
Thank you. So at this time, are there any questions for, go ahead, Councillor Palmer, please.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Director Stice, I'm looking at the actual from 24 and budgets beyond, like your $200,000 to $300,000 less in the revenues. Are there fewer, is the capacity that much lower or just estimates on the low side?
So I don't think our capacity has changed. I think part of the reason for that is we're just trying to balance on averages with the budget a little bit more as we anticipate the new funding model from the province. We're just receiving clarity. And I know, Tiffany, that you were at a meeting yesterday where they were, even just yesterday, there was discussions on how we are going to implement that.
Thank you.
Well, it could end up looking better. The picture
Yes.
could be better, should be better.
Yes, through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer, the intention from the province, our understanding is that this new funding model will serve childcare providers better. It will be giving us all of our money up front, as opposed to in previous years, you would apply for, you would see here that we would have a health and safety line, and we had applied for $12,000 in grants for health and safety. This way, we don't have to continue to go back to the county and the province for this back and forth for grants. The province is saying, we want to give you all your money and allocate it according to the needs of your community. And I would just, Tiff, would there be anything else that you would want to add? I'm on track? Okay, thank you. She's just more up to date based on information received yesterday.
Okay, so you're happy with that, Counselor Palmer?
Yes, and I know when you add it all up and subtract it all, it comes out just a minus 28,000. It's a small figure. And I know other years we're always ahead, so the model, oh, as good as it might be, or hopefully is, we can just hope the province and the country, basically, the feds do their thing and make it fair for everybody.
Thank you. I don't see any more questions. I just had one. If you just go up one slide, please, right in the second dot there. So with that, I gathered from you that you're happy the way it was. So is a positive result with that one?
Yes, and if Tiffany, could I ask you, if through you, Reeve Heffer,
Yes.
if you would
Yeah, sure.
indulge
Please.
Manager Sype, just to speak to perhaps the day-to-day, how is it, how are staff experiencing it and your families? Yes.
Sorry. Through you, Reeve. Yes, to answer that question, the positions that cover our early on programs as well as our before and after have been well received. Staff are doing great with them. Our early on programs continue to run as well as expected. We've introduced new programs with them, and then having the staff cover off a before portion or an after school portion allows us to fulfill those needs that we are meeting the family's requirements.
Oh, appreciate that. So any other questions while we have Tiffany here? No, no. Great presentation. Thank you.
Okay, the next couple of slides, I'll take that on to for parks, the Wingham aligned with budget actuals over the previous years. Increased electricity costs, and there was pre-budget approval for the 2025 flowers. And Blythe, similar, aligned with budget actuals over previous years, and the flowers there also received pre-budget approval, and there's minimal cost at the Children's Park in East Wawanosh.
Okay.
Next
there any-
is,
Go
sorry.
ahead, sorry. Just wondering if there's any questions from anyone here? Okay.
And the next one is the Blythe campground. Rental revenue in 2024 increased. This has been reflected in 2025. The 2024 campground upgrades, 40,000 shown under materials and supplies. Actuals in 2024. This was for the meter pit, backflow preventer, and a water meter, as well as some of the others that I'd explained for upgrades to some of the hydro boxes, as well as possibly a gate installed. Materials and supplies budget is expected to be less in 2025, and all other expenses are based on actuals.
And you go ahead, Councillor Van Hitterson, please.
Thank you, Reeve Heffer. I have a question regarding the QR code for camping that people are complaining about so much. Is it for registration? People have to scan a code by the campground, and
I think Director Stice can answer that better than myself.
thank you.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Van Hitterson. Yes, the QR code is something that we have utilized to support people's payment of their fees, and that way, let's say they were coming after hours, and then they could pay through their phone. But feedback received through council as well as the public was that the QR code perhaps created more barriers than accessibility for people to access the campground. And I've had a chance to speak with a past volunteer who has helped us in this regard, and he certainly is available to support us moving forward, so that we can receive cash payment on site, but also to allow for the QR code, and that we wouldn't post the QR code. There's some comment earlier that QR codes can pose some cyber issues, and so we want to really pay attention to that. So it will be available in a package for this volunteer to offer to people. It'll be, as opposed to putting it out there in case that's how people would like to pay. But we really want to look at how do we make this a good user experience, as well as having the right resources in Blythe to receive these people. So I'm looking forward to a good balance that will reduce the number of complaints and support more satisfaction in that regard.
Well, thank you very much. That's very good to hear that the volunteer is willing to do that. Thank you.
I'll go to Councillor Wright and then Councillor Palmer, please.
Yeah, so I'm happy to see that the revenues are up at the Blythe Campground, because that's been kind of a focus for the last few years. Not really getting into specifics, but generally, like, you know, why were we able to see an increase? I'm just curious what worked there, and if there was a lot of, you know, day usage, week usage, big groups. Just curious.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Wright. I believe that the volunteer that we utilized last year, for the most part, was able to get out there and see support payment, which is one of the reasons why we are looking at getting some gates installed, is just that we can kind of streamline that. His report to me was that he's seeing a lot of repeat users, and while council approved a fee increase last year, and some people felt that it was significant, that may contribute to the additional revenue there. But we are seeing repeat users, and we are working with other organizations to have larger gatherings where they use our space. Outside festivals also have a positive impact on the Blythe Campground.
You, Councillor Palmer, please.
Thank you, Reeve. Yeah, sorry, I need to go back to the East Wallinash Park. The budgeted salary is, and I said this last year, like 15,000. It's the little part down Highway 4 towards Blythe, correct? Is that all this is referring to?
I believe that's the
Yeah.
children referred to as the
Yeah,
children's.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's only quarter of an acre, third of an acre at most. It wouldn't, I'll do it for 15,000.
I think some of them, maybe there's a porta potty or something there
Yes.
too.
Yes.
And maybe Director Lamb might have something more.
Yeah, so through your worship, so kind of throughout the different salaries budgets for public works operations, you'll notice kind of what those are they're estimates of the amount of time that public works staff spend in those areas. But they're not the be all end all, right? It's not like $15,000 in wages is has to be spent there. They may spend more time in Blythe Parks in 2025, and it's really what we're working through is getting as they fill out their timesheets to really job cost their time, so we can better predict that in the future going forward. Of okay, based on actuals, they spend about 5,000 or 8,000 or whatever it ends up being. But that's a process that we implemented as a starting point last year, and it's all the more data we get, the better we can project those going forward. But the total salary lines across those budgets are equal to what they need to be. It's just how they're allocated throughout the budget. So yeah, it really doesn't change the end dollar figure. It's just how they're shown throughout. And the more we can job cost better, the better data we can continue to bring you for how much each of these parks or services or whatever it may be requires of staff time.
Councillor Palmer, okay? Thank you. So we move ahead.
So the under recreation and culture, so the first budget is rec programs. And this budget includes part-time wages for summer day camps. This is where you're going to see all of our programs in that way: Hockey for Fun, PD day camps. And while I believe this budget shows a deficit of, of $8,300. That was just when we were looking at some averaging for salaries across all of our rec programs. That was applied there, but in actuality, that program will net zero. Staff operate all of our programs, our summer day camps, our Hockey for Fun, ensuring that all costs are recovered through that process. What we haven't included in the recreation program at this time, but I want to make note is that we have been successful in becoming a seniors active living center, and funding was announced late January and will be included in this year's budget. But we are just, given the election, that has created a little bit of a pause for the provincial government. And so staff are on pause with having any agreements signed. So we will realize that a little bit later, but we'll follow the budget that was presented, included in our application to the province, which we will now be successful receiving $55,000 annually starting April 1st. So we are matched with the province's fiscal year, which is a April 1st to March 31st year.
Hey, Councillor Van Henderson, please.
Yes, thank you, Kelly. Can you please give a little bit more depth in what the Seniors Active Living Center grant will accomplish it's probably for the whole area. It's not just for North Huron.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. What we had applied for was to really support the engagement of older adults, which is 55 plus is the definition, within the township of North Huron. And we want to make sure that we are actively engaging older adults, utilizing our recreation services. So really mobilizing our services in Wingham as well as Blythe. We also have the fortune of partnering with OneCare, who will be bringing in a hot meal program, as well as an exercise program specifically designed to help reduce falls. It's called a falls prevention exercise program. We will also be hiring a part-time seniors active living coordinator so that they can work collaboratively with our partner organizations and the community across our township, so that we have opportunities available for all kinds of people. So I would say falls prevention might be a little bit more targeted to a older adult, but we want to make sure that this seniors coordinator is paying attention to our younger adults who are aging and wanting to age in place in the township of North Huron. This position will also look to align with some of the directives out of the master plan, including the establishment of a seniors advisory committee.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Director Stice. I'm going to be looking at membership passes as we move along. What was important to us when it came to us about restructuring rec, whether it was fees, programs, staff, changing up stuff, that, okay, we thought we'd give it a year and see how it goes. And your computer program kind of threw a monkey into that one, which I wonder about, because we never heard any of that stuff the year before or the year before. I don't know why this year. But anyways, that's the concern. We need to see that what we approved was the best thing to do moving forward. And, you look at the membership passes, it's nowhere near what it used to be. And, program registrations, they're up a bit, I guess. Yeah, they're up from actuals last year, if that actual figure is correct. But are the two tied together? Like the memberships and the registrations?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, and I will look to Director Fletcher to support my answer here, but I don't believe that all of our 2024 revenues have been actualized through this budget. So what you're seeing is a portion of what we've been able to account for. I don't believe that we will be able to accurately identify that we had this many memberships and revenue in our aquatics program, because the breakdown of that recreation software eliminated our ability to closely account for that. What I understand is that we will have a net understanding of what was brought in, and then we can apply that accordingly. But Director Fletcher, I don't know if you have any other comments around that.
Thank you, Director Stice. At this point, we are still looking into that topic. We are prioritizing our tasks at hand in terms of which topics to account for first. For that, we are looking at a strategy of how to go through and analyze those recreation revenues as they came in to ensure at minimum that we have, as Director Stice was mentioning, a total amount of recreation revenue. In terms of our ability to accurately allocate that out to specific programs is going to depend on the data that is going to be available to us through looking further at that system. At this point in time, we just not have had the time or the resources to go into that level of analysis yet.
Councillor Wright, please, and then I'll go back to Director Stice.
Yeah, so just, I guess, continuing that, you know, I don't think there's a great sense of urgency. It's obviously going to be a long time till we do our fall review of bylaws, right? So I think you're doing the right thing from a prioritization standpoint. But just a follow-up, like we did switch to monthly billing. Did we not also? Like, do we not have monthly billing data, and does the amount of the billing not indicate what programs people are taking? Like, I just wonder, can we not look at the billing side of things as opposed to relying on our rec program to get the information?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, I don't believe it's so easily tied. So some of the things that we are doing within our rec department to understand and provide more feedback to council through our quarterly reporting is we are starting to manually identify what memberships are purchased. So with Keystone as a software, you purchase a membership, but it doesn't calculate, it calculates that you received $53.10, but it doesn't say, like when we use Fusion, that it purchased one monthly membership. We actually have to do that manually. The Keystone is not as sophisticated. It was not intended to be a registration software in that manner. So we will need to do things a little bit more manually. And I'm working with staff so that at the quarterly reporting, we have a better, we provide better information to council on the numbers of memberships sold, and as well as our revenue generation. The other thing that I do use to help understand if we are moving in the right direction, to Councillor Palmer's earlier point, is number of people seen, right? And so, you know, and our aquatic coordinator was saying that, you know, regularly we were seeing 96 people in our pool before noon. And that, you know, is unheard of. But like, those are the things. So we've got some anecdotal data, and we'll have some hard data in order to be able to start to tell the story if council's previous direction is moving us in the right way.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'm looking forward to that quarterly report, and then I think that'll just get our minds thinking, and yeah, I look forward to that. Any other questions?
So, so aquatic programs, so we did see an increase in full-time wages, and you may recall council's previous decision to add a full-time lifeguard in order to try and provide some stability in our in that area, because what we want to do is make sure that we're offering the programs that the community desires. We are going to continue to transfer $50,000 in reserves to maintain the pool. And as council is aware, we are looking at a planned shutdown so that we can get ahead of some of the challenges and implement the right fixes. I've already spoken to the actuals in the revenue, and we will see a small increase. It's proposed a small increase to building repair and maintenance, just to be able to manage some of these repairs on an annual basis. Reeve Heffer, are you okay if I move to fitness
Yes,
program?
go ahead, yes.
So again, with the fitness programming, it was also impacted as a result of the recreation software. But we have recently changed the service model as of January 1st. There were no longer floor hours offered. We are offering services out of the fitness center as a result on a cost recovery basis. So we will offer some fitness programs, exercise classes, but as a result of the service delivery model change, you will see that there was a result in operational savings there.
Questions? Okay. Oh, Counselor Palmer, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Yeah, it's just the disappointment of the membership numbers, like the amount. It's not, the facility's still there. The parts are still there. The exercise stuff's there. There's people there, like staff people. Where are the customers? Like that's what's a bother. I want to see it, it's gonna cycle. But to be, and I know last year's it's not reliable, but the year before, like it's such a drop, and why?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer, I intentionally put a drop in revenue in the fitness services to account for an impact of the service delivery, that, not everybody was going to be satisfied with the change in direction, but as council heard in a previous report, a number of people were looking for that. And there were also changes to the number of fitness services available in the township. So the projected revenue for 2025 was really to be more prudent and realistic with some of the revenues that we might anticipate over the next year. But again, I will certainly include that in our quarterly reporting so that we have an ongoing understanding of where our membership numbers are. We are seeing people up there. We are seeing quite a few people accessing that space. And so I'm pleased, and we're hearing some positive feedback that how it is designed is working for people in the community. But again, quarterly reporting will help get us to that point. And I anticipate our 2026 budget being able to offer you a little bit more of a realistic picture with the 2026 budget.
Counselor Wright, please.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. So, I think we should be revisiting the direction we've given to staff, not to change the outcome, but to change how we get there, right? So, because full cost recovery, okay, that's the direction council made. I'm not going to argue with that. But what we've seen is staff will try to schedule a class, and that class will not have enough enrollment for full cost recovery, so that class gets canceled. It takes a while to build up membership, right? And if all of a sudden, if cost recovery is 10 people, you may get 15 people on that class. So one particular class offsets maybe the fact that another class is a bit below cost recovery enrollment. So I think that's something we should consider, right? Is just not to change the desired outcome, but to give staff a little bit more flexibility to offer services, but yet manage it so that the net impact is full cost recovery as opposed to a specific individual class.
Director Stice, would you like to have a follow-up to that, please?
Sure, through you, Reeve Heffer. I would agree with Councillor Wright's thought in that way, and that's traditionally how I've been used to programming, where the average of all of your programs allows for more of a cost recovery. You certainly don't want to build programs that is really high so that you're always generating huge revenues. We're not a business. We are trying to make sure we're providing a service. And so should council be desirous of that, it would be, as Councillor Wright's pointing out, that maybe one class doesn't achieve full cost recovery, but the average of that nets us in the right direction. And you're correct in that we want to build up reliance and dependability in the community that we're here to provide some services, and this is what it looks like.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Palmer?
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. So does this require another notice of motion?
So, yeah, I'll have to, through your worship, to answer Councillor Palmer's question. I need to look into it to see at first whether it requires of any reconsideration or whether that was just dealt with through the fees and charges process. But yeah, once I look into that, we can certainly discuss with council or of what that looks like. But yeah, ultimately you get to the same endpoint, right? So you could structure it in ways that your quarterly programming has to break even as a further check and balance, right? And because sometimes it's hard to monitor that, oh, this one's going to be a bit under, this one's going to be a bit over. But if you balance each quarter, you're in pretty good shape. But yeah, certainly something that we can look into as staff and see what the most appropriate approach is if council wants to have that discussion. But in the interim, we'll continue to approach it based on council's previous direction until something comes forward, if that's the wish of council.
Reeve, just, it's a follow-up. I think we'll do better, because when there's a quota on a particular program and it's not met, you've got upset people and they might not come back or go somewhere else. So I think we have to do away with, well, if we can do some cost recovery and tie it into, I don't know how you do cost recovery and get rid of that quota thing, or lower it anyways. But anyways, that's what we have to look at. And so I do think our numbers would increase if we are allowing more access, and staff is being paid anyways. Like, they're still there, whether they're teaching a class or not. Oh, they're doing something.
Well, so through your worship, to I guess Councillor Palmer's comment there. So you'll notice, yes, the revenues have decreased, but also your expenditures have decreased because staff are only there if the programs run. So it offsets. So really the revenues that Director Stice has projected in this budget, it's your net, because you run more programs, you have more expenses. It's currently cost recovery. It's going to get you to the same endpoint of the net surplus or deficit for this overall budget. But yeah, in terms of how you could do that, that's something that staff we would definitely want to provide a thorough analysis of the various options for council, and that's something that we could work through if council wants to see that. Because yeah, you may to manage it, you may want to say, okay, as long as we have 80% of cost recovery, then that way you're not opening the floodgates of, okay, well, one person's registered, we are now obligated to run this class again. So it kind of sticks with council's direction that you wanted to go in of more cost recovery, but helps kind of build up your programming and your registration.
Okay, yeah, the end game could be the same, but we'll have more satisfied citizens.
Yep, absolutely.
Because right now, there's upset people out there.
Yeah, well, it was great dialogue with that, and Director Stice certainly has heard you out on that. Okay, Councillor Van Henderson, please.
Thank you very much. Director Stice, how do you know if there are any volunteers that are doing classes? I hear that's the point in surrounding municipalities at rec centers, that some volunteers do classes. Is that a possibility here, or is that not something we want to get into?
Through you, your worship, certainly something that we could consider. And I would like to look into how those other municipalities are doing that. My understanding through volunteerism is that volunteers can't take away paid employment, but perhaps there's been a workaround or some opportunity. So I will look into investigating that as well. Thank you.
So it looks like Director Stice has a lot of things to look into. That's good.
So the next slide is the recreation administrative budget. So we don't see any revenues in recreation administration typically, but there is a miscellaneous revenue line there. And that was advised, it's my understanding that that was direction given from the auditor to have that as a placement for the damages received from the software issue, as well as energy rebates. And so we won't see that year over year, that those are just one-time revenue for that space. In our expenses, there is $25,000 allocated for potential design work required for the revitalization of the courts. And that was at the direction of council earlier last year. And so that was included as per council's direction.
Any questions? Seeing none, go ahead to facilities.
Through you, your worship, that is over to me for the interim. So the in Wingham, the rink board advertising, and that will be the same as in Blythe, went out early 2024, but Director Fletcher has confirmed that those revenues will be able to be realized within that 2024 budget. It was not reflective at this time. So we will have so the next sentence around receiving twice the revenues for 25, we actually will be able to allocate 2024 revenues to 2024, and then we will have our 2025 rink board advertising line. Again, the actual revenues for things like admissions and all of our ice use were not able to be realized as yet because those are also impacted by the software issues. We are looking at some minor capital through the operating budget, just to keep, with the aging of the building, we are just trying to keep on top of some of the issues so that we are avoiding some of the major expenses. But reflected in capital, as already shared, is a replacement of the electrical panel, a roof assessment, and then if council provides direction, replacement of the flooring.
Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, so what is the plan for these software issues? So I know we had a catastrophic failure in 2024. We're it sounds like we're making do with the software we have, but it's got limitations. But on the other hand, I don't see anything in the budget for actually installing new software to get us out of those limitations. So I'm just wondering what the plan is for 2025.
CAO.
Yeah, so through you, your worship, to answer Council Wright's question, my initial thought is to get through the process of know kind of fully what the reconciliations are, how that needs to be allocated, to get really the full extent of what we're working with, and then from there we can determine what we need, right? So I'm hesitant to go and say, yep, let's just release an RFP for a new recreation software, because the last two we have had, the municipality's not been satisfied with, right? So kind of let's do a thorough analysis of our needs, and then kind of go from there. Once we've done that analysis, it all is really contingent on how long it takes to get the full extent of the scenario. Then we can bring something forward and we would determine how to fund it then. So whether that's in 2025, I don't necessarily know at this point, given kind of what we want to work through. But yeah, that's the initial thoughts behind that, is not to just jump into another process, because the last two we've had have not necessarily met the needs and or have been to the satisfaction of the townships.
Thank you.
Moving on with the facilities, so the arena in Blythe, again, we'll continue to talk about the recreation software issue, and the advertising revenues are the same situation as in Wingham. The hall in Blythe, so as interim CAO Lamb identified, is we are working to look at how staffing costs are allocated and coded. And so over the next while, that is one of the priorities that we are working on with staff, is how are we allocating and accounting for their time. And so that is one of the focuses moving forward. And we may see some adjustments within the budget in order to better reflect that. But from a net perspective, there isn't any increases to what council has approved in terms of full and part-time equivalent. So we are just, it's just how are we allocating that time? And then in terms of the $30,000 included for engineering work, that was council direction pending the thought of what we might want to move into that space, or if if council wanted to provide direction to revitalize that space and maintain it as a hall. So $30,000 was included for that work. And then our arena in East Wabanach remains relatively unchanged because of our partnership there, and which for all accounts seems to work well.
Okay, are there any questions for Councillor Palmer?
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Yeah, when I saw this, I knew there was error. The revenue from last year and this year budgeted is only half. They get billed, and I know this for a fact because I was talking with their committees, or in communication with their committee's treasurer. They were billed once. Okay, they were billed in 23. They were billed July to December, and they paid it. And the second bill was not paid, or not sent. In 24, they had a bill from January to June. They paid it, $9,593.77. And there was no bill for the rest of the year. So we're out about $18,000 in revenue. They want to pay, but they can't pay unless they get a bill. So it's easily rectified. I'm not sure why. Other years have been fine. You know, they've been getting their 2 bills a year. And like, I know it's not your fault by any means, Anit, and that. But if you can get right on it and give them their bills, they'll be happy to pay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so through your worship to Councillor Palmer's comments there. Yeah, that's something that yeah, with our finance team, they've gone through a bit of a transition here. That's something that Director Fletcher is certainly working through to making sure all the appropriate billings are going out and have gone out to make sure that those revenues that we're expecting year over year are continuing to come in. So yep, the township is certainly aware of it, and the finance team is going to get a lot of those sorted for us.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wright, please.
Yes, thanks, Reeve. So we were, I think, in the same spot last year where we didn't have previous year actuals in time for budget, which I kind of understand. But then, like, last year, we never actually received a report when year end was done, right? When full reconciliation of the previous year was done. So I just want to make sure, whether it's the first quarterly report or wherever we get it, that we are council is gonna get that final reconciliation as a report when it's done.
CAO, please.
Yeah, so through your worship to Councillor Wright's comments, certainly noted. The intent for sure is for the finance department to get back to the quarterly activity reports, just like the other departments do. I guess in terms of timelines, so every year council receives the audited financial statements. Really, that's the indication that those statements are fully complete. Normally, that comes to council around June. However, due to the software issue experienced last year, our auditor had to kind of be put on pause, go through their other clients, and then come back to us. So council received those audited financial statements for 2023 around November of last year. But we're hoping that that should get back to normal practice again for this year with the 2024 audited financial statements.
Okay, thank you. Okay, safe move on then. Go ahead.
So this section of the report is speaking to our concession booths, both in Wingham and in Blythe, and this budget area consists of both the operation of the booths, but also of the vending machines located in both buildings. With the concession booths, as per council's direction, we sought out interest from the community to operate both of those booths, and we were successful in being able to uh, utilize a company that is operating the booth in Wingham. A report will be brought later because we're still kind of in the midst of ice season and the playoffs are getting ready and the booth might be a little bit more busy. And also our contract with them ends at the end in the spring. I don't have the right date. So I certainly want to bring an evaluation back to council in terms of and seek some recommendations moving forward next year. And then the vending machines, we are just in between vendors. So we had one vendor who was providing no percentage of sales back to the township, and another local vendor who was interested in providing a percentage of sales of those vending machines. So we're just in the process of switching that over.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. We'll do the libraries and then we'll take maybe a 5-minute break.
So with respect to the libraries, as council will recall at a recent meeting, that there was approval of our facilities and services agreement. And so we receive about $15,000 annually from for the operation of the Alice Munro branch, and then just under 10,000 for the operations of the branch in Blythe.
Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Van Hitterson, please.
Is this 15,000 and 9,000 amount, that's already the same for years, isn't it? Shouldn't it be adjusted? Can't you ask for an adjustment because of cost of living and cost of increases of supplies and rent and everything like that?
Yeah, so those funding amounts are established based on the county board's policy. And I believe for them, it's mainly an in and out as well. It's money they receive, which then they pass on to us. If you'll recall, in 2023, we did express concern over the amount coming, and council directed staff to send a letter requesting for those amounts to be updated. However, that has not since occurred, but the point is valid. It's remained at those figures for years and doesn't necessarily reflect the changes in costs of providing the space for the service.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for all of your input up to now, and we're just going to have a recess.
Yeah, so if council's desirous of a recess, I suggest we pass a motion to take a recess. It's 11:02 right now, so let's say until do we want to say 11:08? And then we'll leave the live stream running because there's a number of members of the public watching right now, so we'll leave the live stream running and we'll return for 11:08.
May I have a mover? Councillor Wright, Councillor Whitfield, all in favor? Carried.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I should be there. Oh, yeah. Got him free out finally. Well, hang on. That sounds like it'll be interesting. Exercises. But my other one's actor. I get morphine out of it. It'll be much better. Get one fix. It'll help a lot.
Okay, we're ready to resume now at this time. We're going to the museum.
Through you, Reeve Heffer. So the museum, self-explanatory. So there was a pre-approval for the 2 staff to continue for 4 months and 1 staff to continue for 2 months. There will be regular updates on the completion of the project or thereof. And if there's any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions about the museum? I know it's getting empty looking over there, so which is great news. And so we just look forward to what you have for us at our next report time about that and whatnot. So good. Seeing none? Okay, thank you very much. Move on to economic development.
Thank you. So for the economic development budget, so this time we have a reserve in revenue. So it will include SLED also 75,000, and for expenses it would be 424,110. And to go into deeper on for the revenue, so it will include the grant funding. Denise can discuss more about
Yeah.
that.
So for the SLED funding, that is a Huron County grant that we apply for annually. And the announcement has not been made yet. I've heard rumors that there's actually going to be 2 sections of the grant, one for accessibility and then one for economic development. So when that announcement comes out, it's up to $10,000 and it's 100%. So for funding opportunities, if we have other funding opportunities, I'll be coming back to budget or coming back to council with individual projects if we want to go further.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for the transfers for economic development reserve, so there was CIP program for 40,000, and recently we received approval for the Hutton Heights Cedro removal for 25,000. For the expenses highlights, so it includes wages and benefits, and like Denise can discuss about the advertising and promotion. Yeah, so we, as per the submitted report, so this is related to the Blythe Festival corporative marketing budget. So this is 5,000 and total is 12,000. And for the township advertising,
So you'll see a large portion of it then is going to the Blythe advertising. So the
Yeah.
7,000 will include everything that the township wants to advertise for. It can go from everything from Remembrance Day or if we're having
promotion and
yeah, promotions or anything other than like our legal requirements. So if it's recreation is one or administration is another, but this is actually a blanket advertising overall for all of the departments. And then the Alice Munro, so that was put in, but recently we have found out that the festival is confirmed to be canceled. So that will be removed. Is that, sorry?
Yes, council provided direction earlier to
Yeah.
remove that.
So the special projects line.
yeah, for special project line, it would be 92,000, which have 10,000 for is offset by SLED funding, and which includes like job fair, workshops, and land investigation initiatives for 30,000. So this year, like last year, 2024, so job fair was very successful, and I already received one interested company who are interested to attend this year as well. So, and also like we are working directly, we are partnering with Huron County for organizing various workshops for the local businesses here in the township of North Huron. And for that, we're going to do the survey and already engaged with the BIA, what sort of workshops or the training we could provide to support them here locally. and also like creating economic opportunities. So I'm closely working with the potential investors and doing like work. And for that, we would need to do the feasibility study, phase 1 and phase 2. And after doing that, it would be helpful for that potential investors, and we can utilize that for attracting another like potential investors to create economic opportunity in the North Huron.
So the communications, community engagement, and marketing strategy was actually part of the North Huron strategic plan, 1.6 and 3.2. So that is estimated at $40,000. Community engagement initiatives. So some of its examples that we've done over the years is partnering with the Huron County Chamber, which has expanded to be not just Goderich, Central Huron, and North Huron, but actually the county. So those projects are very exciting. Accessibility initiatives, working with the BIAs and the SLED application at 3,500, and the youth-friendly strategic, strategy, which is part of the North Huron Strat Plan at 2.2. So I would be coming up with a program that's worth $15,000, but applying for $10,000 that'd be offset by SLED. There's the Hutton Heights.
Yeah, so 25,000, which is approved by the council for Hutton Heights hedgerow removal. And then
Yep, so special project tourism, so $5,000. That's for a kiosk and print in both, or all three communities, so Wingham, Blythe, and East Wawanach. And that's again part of the strategic plan 1.4. The volunteer recognition at $7,000. Again, also part of the strat plan at 1.2.
and for CIP program, 40,000 new grant programs, but it would be funded from the ACDEV reserves.
And then finally, the website at $28,000. So the $8,000 is for our annual operating costs, but the $20,000 is a required migration due to end of life of our current website host. The website host? Oh, the website? Yeah, sure. So currently, we are hosted by iCreate, and it used to be eSolutions. Now it's GHD. Technology goes so fast that our current website, instead of going and creating a whole new website, this is just a migration over into new software that's actually going to be way easier and user-friendly, more user-friendly.
Councilor Wright, Bruce?
So as a follow-up, is that the town website that this is referring
That's
to?
correct.
Oh, okay. But
It's the only one we host right now.
yeah, I'm just surprised that would be under economic development instead of general administration, but maybe that's how you said you parsed it out through different departments. But back to special projects. So like the actual cost for the, 30,000 and 40,000. So is that like to external third-party vendors? Like, is that what those cost, like what are we paying for to get that money? Like, where's the cost come in?
This is not for the external vendors. This is for our work, which we're going to do this year. So it includes for the job fair in the 2025. And also like I'm partnering with the Huron Economic Development team to organize 2 or 3 workshops in the local like township in North Huron. So it again going to include money for inviting the trainers, and it depends what type of training and the workshops the local businesses are interested to have. And also like I'm closely working with the potential investors from we are working to do the feasibility study. So once it's done, so it's like for us it would be easy to attract the new investment in the North Huron, and through this we can also create the economic opportunity locally here in the North Huron.
So, yeah, I guess just to add, so to your question, like the 40,000 noted for the communications, community engagement, and marketing strategy, that is for an external third party to come in. So one thing we heard strongly from council was that our communications as a municipality can be improved. My thought with that one is bringing in a communications expert, right? who provides tangible recommendations on how the township should be communicating with its residents, engaging with its residents, and then marketing the municipality. So that's the intent with that one. And then I guess in regard to the feasibility study, realistically, it would be cost for a third party to come in and conduct that as well. It wouldn't be cost for our in-house work. It would be, we would bring in an external entity to conduct that study for
Yeah,
the
That's
township.
true.
Thank you.
Counselor Palmer and then Counselor Van Henderson, please.
You're not gonna like what I'm gonna say. Staff was asked to come with basically pared down the best budget they could have for this. And yours is the one that's, it's up 100,000 plus. Well, it's more than that, because the 65,000 is reserves, so that shows a false position. Like, it's way too rich in my mind. You don't have to do all the projects. Like, in going back a bit, ECDev brings in housing development, which in turn brings in tax dollars. I know that's a couple of the projects could bring in some people to do what we don't have land, like Hutton Heights is taken care of, that's done, and we don't really have a whole lot of anything else. So you're not, the results are questionable to certain mindsets, and I'm really upset that it's too high. It's way too high. If it was 100,000 less, 100,000 less, then it would be palatable, but it isn't for me at this level.
So if I may, through your worship, just to Councillor Palmer's questions, I do want to say in fairness to staff, they made every effort to cut where we felt it was feasible. So for example, training, travel, and workshops, we decreased that by 5,000. Advertising and promotions, we cut that by 7,000. The overall wages looks different from the actuals for 2024 because we didn't have an EDO until partway through the year, right? So if you look at the budgeted amount for salaries from 2024, it aligns with the budgeted amount for salaries from 24 to 25 is comparable. It's just we ended up realizing savings because we didn't hire the EDO position until about April or so of last year, right? So that's about a quarter of savings. In regard to the drivers of the increase in the budget, a lot of them are one-time costs, right? So 40,000 for the communication strategy, again, a one-time cost, as well as the 20,000 for a website upgrade. Again, that's a one-time cost as well for this migration to occur that we would normally otherwise not experience, but just all the municipal clients with eSolutions have to migrate to GovStack. So yeah, in fairness, yeah, they certainly did work through bringing it down where feasible, but obviously council can provide direction on what you want to see in regard to economic development projects in and not in the budget.
As a bit of a follow-up, Reeve, thanks. Like, I know that residents, they hate it when they see or read about feasibility study or whatever. And lots of times they're necessary. But for this one, 40,000 to have a person come in and give you some ideas. How about phoning other municipalities and see what they're doing? What are they successful at and what's not working? Like there's I don't know, look at other ways of saving money.
Yeah, through you, Reeve. So we are agree with you. We need to save money, but also like it's not about the 40,000, and the 30,000 includes the job fair and different workshops, and also it includes the feasibility study. And for phase 1 and phase 2, it will cost up to 20,000. And these are not the new project which we are proposing this year. So we have like reduced our budget to this amount. And these are the project which I am working since I joined. So, and I'm closely working with this potential investment, and housing is also like a great opportunity for us. But if we go or we align our work in terms of North Huron strategic plans for item number 1.2 to support the balanced growth in North Huron and to attract like developments. So we are working towards this commercial development, and we need money to perform that study to provide that economic opportunity locally here in North Huron.
I was just going to speak on the 40,000 for the community. So over the year, Ritu and I have actually worked on a community plan
We
for
prepared.
communications, but found that and had gotten different reports and documents from other close municipalities, Huron, Kinloss,
Yeah.
Huron East, South Huron, and also just searches of other small municipalities that are doing communication plans. And all of them had suggest or had done their own study. So that's why we had proposed this way.
And majorly these type of studies, like other municipalities, so they do it and they take help from the external resources. So like it depends on the council, how they would like to perform. So, yeah.
Thank you, Reeve. For the workshops, if they're going through, or if Huron County is hosting those, I hope we don't have to pay for those, because then it's double taxed actually to the people from North Huron. If you're paying county taxes and municipal tax to pay for this.
Through you, Reeve, so this would be what we are doing locally here in the North Huron. So for the workshops, like Huron County do have their yearly agendas and different types of workshops they are organizing. But as a North Huron, like what we are proposing to support our local businesses, so we are organizing this workshops locally here in the North Huron so that they can attend by themselves. And for that, I'm going to have the survey just to get their idea what type of trainings or the workshops they would like to attend, like succession plannings and financial help if they would like to have, and various topics. So through that survey, we get the idea when and what type of workshops they are interested to have. So through this workshop, we are just gonna discuss about the local businesses and not, we are just partnering with the Huron County in terms of finding the trainers because they have various contacts. So they can provide some funds, but it depends on the workshops and the training, what we are looking to have here in North Huron. Yeah.
Sorry, any other questions? No. Go ahead, Councillor Palmer, please.
I'm not sure if you mentioned it already. What was the plan for the $7,000 for volunteers? Because there's lots of ways of recognizing them.
Volunteer.
Yeah. So there was a report come to council last year about different options of volunteer recognition. So that would include, instead of individual recognition, this would be a full gala for the rental of a facility, which can happen. There is some free spaces that we can use as well, but it would be to actually host a recognition evening for all volunteers in North Huron.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you. Okay, planning and development.
Yeah, so your next slide is on the planning budget. So again, very straightforward budget. We provide or we receive planning services from the county. So in regard to the fees, council will recall that a planning fees review working group was established by the county that had local representation, with the impetus being to better recover the cost for the municipalities. The really the revenues are driven by the amount of applications you receive. It's anticipated that you're going to get less applications because with some of the provincial legislative changes, more is permitted as a right. So for something you may have needed a zoning amendment or a minor variance or site plan control for before, for example, you're not necessarily likely to see those applications because it's permitted as a right. Legal fees, we've kept them the same as when we increased them in the 2024 budget. And the reason for this is because the OLT appeal for the comprehensive zoning bylaw remains ongoing. So we want to make sure that we still have sufficient funds as we continue to navigate our way through that OLT appeal process. And then the $10,000 in engineering funds, we've removed that from the planning budget. And most of the time that line was significantly underspent. And the reason why is really any engineering costs related to planning applications, those costs get passed on to the applicant themselves. So the township really shouldn't be incurring much engineering funds other than very one-off scenarios. So we felt that that wasn't necessarily required at this time.
Good. Thank you. Any questions for CLM at all? Oh, very straightforward. Go ahead, drainage.
So yeah, next budget here, drainage, again, very straightforward budget. The $20,000 under inspections and contracts is the funds we pay annually to Burnside for providing the township with drainage superintendent services. And the $1,200 under training is required for, we have a number of new staff. So it's to get them more familiar with the drainage process. So really right now, the intent is to send one clerk's department staff, being the deputy clerk, and as well as the deputy treasurer, to the drainage training so that they know the obligations for both departments in regard to processing drainage files.
Any questions on drainage? Pretty straightforward. Okay, go ahead. Go on.
Here is the loan and debt repayment schedule for 25 and 26. The fire payout specifically for 26 is just under 33, but then cumulatively between the fire payouts and the grader, we are looking at just under, just over 44,000 for 2026 and about 98,000 for 2025 in total.
Okay, any questions? It's nice. They've been on our docket since we started, most of us started. And so it's nice seeing it. You often wondered, is 26 going to get here or not? But it goes through your mind, it's out in front of you, and it's good to see that.
So the next slide is a summary of the transfer to reserves. Again, please, for the 2024 actuals, there will still be some further adjustments to be made as the 24 books and records are closed. But in terms of comparing 24 budget to 25 budget, the variances are listed there. Are there any specific questions?
Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to see, so this is all the transfer ins and transfer out, but it'd be nice to see a summary of the net result. Just an update, end of the year, here's where all the reserve accounts were in 2024, and here's where we expect them to be in 2025, just so we can see that big picture.
I can certainly do
CAO,
that.
please.
Yeah, and through your worship, so every year, kind of once we get through the budget process, staff do bring that balance of reserves, and usually it shows up on the consent agenda of one of your meetings. So our intent will still be to bring that report forward, so council has a full appreciation for what you have in your various reserve accounts.
Any other questions? Seeing that.
The next slide is a transfer from reserves. As we can see here in the 25 budget, we've identified the 2 transfers from reserves on account of capital, and then the balance for the individual projects in account of operating. So the economic development slides that we were just looking at, that is the total of the 65 for them, the 255 for capital, and then the balance for the various other projects.
Any questions for our Director of Finance? Seeing none? Okay.
Okay, I'll do the user pay budget. Water and sewer fully funded, no effect on taxation. Water and sewer rates increased in accordance with the approved rates in the water and wastewater financial plans. Revenues project the transition to flat rate water and sewer billing.
Are there any questions in here? My only comment was in the Veolia part here, I would highlight it here that it is quite a jump from the budget that you did in 2024 to the 2025 budget.
Yeah, so through your worship, in regard to that one, that's something that staff are looking into. So, and if there is a change to the contract amount, we would just reflect the actual numbers in the final version of the budget before it's adopted by bylaw. Ultimately, it's not going to, because it's not funded through taxation, it would just mean we would draw less from reserves to offset the overall costs in those user pay budgets.
Yeah, just with the variance, it'd be nice to have feedback on that because sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, to follow up with that, like it's $1 million is what we pay Veolia and for both water and sewer. And we've used them forever. Should we be looking at other people that can service, other companies out there that can do the same job? Like we should maybe get a bid system or RPs or whatever it is. Just so we're doing our due diligence.
So through your worship, to Councillor Palmer's question, we will be in a contract with Veolia. I don't know what the term of that contract is. I remember we re-entered into it in the last term of council. So it'll be coming forward again. At that time, council can provide direction of whether you want to go to RFP in the interest of accountability and transparency. It's always definitely a benefit to go to RFP. However, there's obviously a limited number of water and wastewater operators within the province of Ontario, so you're likely only to get a few, but to do your due diligence, you can certainly do that.
Thank you. Any other questions on the user pay budget?
I'll do the user pay capital. There's significant capital projects required in 2025 for water and sewer, and these are provided to us from Veolia. The water for Wingham and Blythe, SCADA system upgrade, and it's 250,000. In Wingham, well number 3, generator 10,000. Wingham, a turbidity meter 8,000, and then in Blythe, a turbidity meter same 8,000. And in Blythe, a replacement of a 10-inch valve, 25,000. And also it is noted in here regarding the standpipe, and it's 6,000. And currently I understand that it is still in the design stages.
I wish it was.
Sorry, 6
6,000.
million.
Wish it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for the correction. But I understand that it is currently in the design stages with Burnside.
Thank you.
And for sewer for 2025, the sand filters previously been awarded and is under way now in Blythe. The repairs to the sewer treatment plant there. In Wingham, a sewer treatment plant concrete repairs, 20,000. Sewer treatment plant generator, 150,000. And fencing off the lagoon in Wingham, 150,000. Blythe, concrete repairs there, another 20,000. And in Wingham, shop roof and door repairs for 50,000. And when you go to the projected P2 projects, screen for the inlet well, 400,000 in Wingham. Aeration valve replacement, 30,000 in Blythe, and various general security and fencing, 200,000. And then the dumping station, 125,000 in Blythe.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Van Hitterson, please.
Thank you, Reeve. Like the generator and the fence off and the other fencing, they will all go out for RFPs, or is it going to be done through public works staff?
No, whenever it's a certain dollar figure, they would be an RFP.
So well, it'll come back to us.
Yep.
Or not?
Through
Depending
your-
on the amount.
through your worship, it all depends on the threshold, right? So it comes back in various ways depending on, so staff have the ability to award anything included in the budget for 75,000 and under, provided it's not over the amount that was budgeted. So we would continue to follow the procurement policy for the different projects.
Okay, any other questions? I take it on the sewer part there, it's the third line down, it says various general security and fencing. That's the one we're talking that we saw on the bus trip out there by Hutton Heights then, I take it?
That would be correct.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions for these jobs? They are major jobs, but I guess that's what happens if we hold back and not getting at it and so any other things for Director Wilson? Seeing none? Next step.
Yeah, so on the last slide here, it refers to next steps. So really it comes down to two options and it all depends on where council's sitting in regard to the budget process. So if council is satisfied with what we've presented today, or I would say in large part satisfied with what was presented today, and it's only minor changes, then we'd recommend that council pass a motion adopting it in principle, and that gives staff the ability to start going ahead. So we would start releasing some of these tenders to hopefully get ahead of others and come back with competitive pricing, and we would proceed with basically kickstarting the work that needs to be done, because we would have council support in principle. But if there's major changes to the budget and council feels that you need a second budget meeting to really hash some of this stuff out, then it's proposed that meeting would be for March 14th. And then so you are required to have a public meeting. So right now, if council's supportive, we would hold that public meeting on March 17th and have the bylaw for adoption of the final budget on that. But if council wanted a second budget meeting to discuss further, then again, we'd have that March 14th meeting, and then you'd be looking at the April 7th council meeting for the public meeting and then final adoption of the budget. So yeah, that's really indicates the next steps. So we will have one alteration to that motion if council's in support, just because of the fact that council has made a decision on those Alice Munro funds to remove those. But yep, at this point, that's really what staff have to present to you today. But we're happy to field any questions.
Okay, at this time, I open up to the members. Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Reeve. Yeah, just a couple of tidy up questions. Have we received a grant from MT yet?
Through your worship. So currently in the budget, there is no grant funding reflected for that. So my understanding is we have applied, and then it sounds like they're going to continue to support. We just haven't received anything back in writing. So which ultimately is going to better your overall budget situation, because you'll have those revenues coming in. So.
Okay. And follow up, please. We usually see examples in our wards what the tax bill would be like. Be nice to have that.
Yep.
Even if it was just emailed to us, be nice to see.
Yeah, so through your worship, to Councillor Palmer's question, certainly aware of that process. The Director of Finance and I discussed that recently. Looking back in previous years, that was always provided as part of that final meeting, where the budget was presented as part of the public meeting and then the final adoption by budget. Our intent is to continue with that exercise, and you'll receive those as part of that slide deck as well.
Hey, Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, thanks, Reeve. So I'm certainly largely in favor of the budget that staff brought. Just, for those that may be watching online, there was nearly 30 clarification questions sent by council to staff, and which we responded to before the budget. So In addition to the information council received today, there was a lot of back and forth previous, and I have to say that the speed at which the questions were answered gives me a lot of confidence that you guys know this budget inside out. So just want to express my appreciation for the work you guys did for putting this budget together.
Thank you. Counselor Palmer, please.
I was very, very excited when this budget came out, when we saw it. I recognize that staff really worked hard to, we've never been approached with one with a levy so low, the tax low, so so low as this. Usually we had to hammer it all out to get it lower. So this was well given. But I'm still, the ECDEV one is still blowing my mind. I think it's way beyond what we need to do. Certainly some of it, but so I don't know how we go ahead with that. Either they're gonna just continue to present it, and that's what we're gonna see next time, or there'll be some adjustments. I'm not happy with it. I'm not happy that ruins the budget for me. The good work of everybody else.
So, yeah, through your worship to Councillor Palmer's comments, I do want to reiterate that I feel they have done great work as well to cut where possible. I don't think their intent was to come in with something absorbent by any means. What I would say to guess the first part of that is if council wants to see cuts, that is entirely within your prerogative in regard to that budget as well as anything we've presented today. I would recommend that you provide that direction to us today. And again, provided their council doesn't feel that you have to thoroughly hash out a number of other items, we can still adopt the budget in principle subject to those changes. So yeah, if council wanted to see changes to that budget, we just need to know what they are and we can put them to a vote so that council provides that direction.
Go ahead, Counselor Wright, please.
Yeah. See, I mean, in my mind, like, so I share Councillor Palmer's concerns, but you know, we already approved the 40,000 CIP program, right? That's just showing up as a budget now. We already approved the volunteer recognition. That's just now showing up in budget. And the website, you know, that was kind of a staff decision that it went into economic development. It could have quite easily have been left under general administration. So it shows up as economic development, but isn't, like, the website's really operational to the municipality, right? So, you know, really, I think you get down to the 30,000 for the job fairs, workshops, and land investigation, and 40,000 for the other items, communication, engagement, and strategy. But, you know, I guess at the end of the day, my thought is if you're going to have an economic development officer, you have to pay for them to do these economic development activities. Otherwise, you're not getting value for the staff that you're paying for, right? So I think they defended the budget well the way it was. And, you know, overall, you're talking less than, you know, you might be able to save 0.25% of the tax rate if we cut that down. So
Good. Yeah, through your worship, to, I guess, build on Councillor Wright's comments, they were also, as well, they were very cognizant to ensure it aligns with council's directives through the strategic plan, right? So your communications and community engagement strategies in the strategic plan as an action item, your marketing strategy, your kiosks is in it, diversified growth are all items noted in the strategic plan, youth-friendly communities in the strategic plan as well. So really, kind of in the review of the budget, it's how do we align with that strategic plan so we achieve those action items that council has wanted to see satisfied.
I guess my comment to that, what you just said, CO Lamb, is we have a county down there too that's more than willing to help us too, and we have to take that in consideration. I heard them mention them once there with one of the things here, but but they have an economic development they want to help us too, and I think we have to work with that too. So I guess at the end of it, every choice that I make, I have to consider the aging infrastructure and asset management, and then the level of services, whether it's our wants and needs. And I appreciate what came back to us from staff, and very much appreciated it. To me, it was really good. But as I say, I guess I wasn't expecting that with ECDev plan, and I see where you go, but maybe there are places in there where they're going to be able to cut those numbers back too, like when they're working with other groups involved in there. So that's just my comment. And anybody else has anything they want to add? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
I got to remember that 65,000 came out of reserves. And I want to see reserve money go into, hard assets, hard stuff that needs help. But I was really surprised to see that in ECDev, that much anyways. Okay, I understand they're hardworking, like nothing personal. It's just, it's too high, it's too much. Pare it back to where it was last year. I know some of the things council, voted on, and that's fair. It's not, that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. Just that it's too high. What's it going to be next year? You can't do all the projects. We pick and choose capital items. Well, you don't have to get all the projects and do them all the time. You pick and choose them, and it has to be within a fine line of the expenses, of what the budget looks like, and it hurts our budget. And again, it's not bringing in any tax dollars.
Go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, so, to be frank, I disagree that you have to pick and choose, right? So my expectation of the 2023 strategic plan is staff gets everything on that list done, right? Like that was the direction we gave them, right? That here's all the things that we want staff to do in the next 4 years. If they come back in 2027, if I'm still here, and the list is, well, we got half of it done, right? I'm not that, that I wouldn't be favorable for that. So, I mean, if we want staff to tick off the ticky boxes on the strategic plan, and it costs $10,000 or $20,000 to tick some of those things off, then, I don't think, I think that's the right way to go. The other thing too is, again, I think this part of the budget is getting hit with some things that could have gone somewhere else. So it's making it look bad. So for example, the 25,000 for hedgerow removal, right? It didn't have to come out of economic development. The sale of lands actually went into general government, right? And so maybe this should have come out of general government, but I mean, it was pre-approved, right? So again, I think this is showing up as a high dollar amount just because there was decisions made to put it here as opposed to other spots within the budget, right? They could have put in other spots and then probably reduced this by 50 or 60,000, and it wouldn't have been an issue, and it would have hidden in other departments without, being very noticeable. So I just think it looks bad, but I don't think it is bad.
Well, so what I would say is the reserves for the economic development reserves were only built up because of collection of funds year over year for a CIP program that we didn't expend all the funds for, right? So to draw on that 40,000 to fund the CIP, that was largely built up from under expenditures of CIP funds collected from 21, 22, 23, 24. So really we've collected them for community improvement plan purposes, and we're just continuing to keep them for those purposes, right? So I look back 22, 40,000 was collected, 10,000 was spent, 23, 20,000 was collected, 15,000 was spent, 24, 30,000 was collected, 7,000 was spent, right? So economic development, they're hopeful that we get more of an uptake now that council has expanded the grant programs, but really it's using funds that were previously collected for community improvement projects for those purposes.
Any other comments that we want? Like, I guess the way I look at it, we've collected that money or put it there, but our infrastructure has hurt too. I guess that was my thinking on it. We're putting money into other people fixing up their properties, yet our taxpayers are missing out in where maybe some infrastructure capital things could have been fixed up. And that's just my thought on it. That's why I'd like to have seen it pared down a bit, but we'll put it towards council here.
Yeah, and that's certainly valid too, right? So the township has an infrastructure deficit. It's more of I guess, a theoretical question from council of where you want to see your dollars spent, right? Do you want to take care of your assets before funding others? You did expand your CIP, so that would almost be counter to that, but it really all boils down to where council wants to prioritize their dollars. Staff, we can put whatever you want in the budget for what your priorities are. It's really just at this point, staff required direction from council on what those priorities are. And then we can adjust accordingly.
Okay, thank you, COLM. Okay, now, is there anything anybody would like to add before we move on? Again, just appreciate, as was mentioned already by some of the councilors, the work that was put into this budget is just great, and it's sort of nice feeling sitting here, seeing the positive, you could see the positive vibes coming from the people. So that is just great. Go ahead, Councilman Henderson, please.
Thank you, Reeve. The point of economic development is to attract more people to our community, so they are going to live here, use our facilities, and make it a nicer community for everybody, and to build houses here. And the point of building houses is collecting taxes. And if we collect more taxes, then there will be more money to put towards all the other things that we are needing money for our streets and our towers and everything. So I think I agree that it is a large amount of money put towards this, but in the end, it is attracting people to our municipality. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the reports that Ritu and Denise are bringing forward to council, and see where they're going with
We'll be able-
promoting our municipality. Thank you.
Yep, we'll be able to look at the results. Go ahead. Oh, Councillor McBurney, go ahead, please.
Yes, you, Reeve. Thank you. I would like to move the recommended motion on the floor.
So if that's the case, and again, other than the previous one I noted, but your motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts the 2025 Township of North Huron budget in principle, subject to the previously approved amendment to remove the $3,000 in funding from the Alice Munro Festival for the Alice Munro Festival from the economic development budget, and authorizes staff to commence the necessary processes to undertake the 2025 capital projects. And further, that council directs staff to proceed with scheduling the public meeting and presenting the budget for final adoption at the March 17th, 2025 regular meeting. And further, that the tax rate bylaw and BIA budgets be brought forward for adoption once all tax rate and BIA budget information becomes available.
Okay, we have Councillor McBurney moving, Councillor Wright second. All in favor? Carried. If count.
Yeah, so given council's direction in regard to the budget, so for the next meeting, so the budget will be presented for final adoption at the March 17th regular council meeting. So there'll be the public meeting that's part of that as well. So that's the option that is selected given council's previous direction on the budget.
Okay. Move on to conformity bylaw, that the bylaw number 17/2025 being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, ratify matters dealt with the Council of Township of North Huron at the February 26, 2025 meeting be introduced, read a first, second, third, final time be signed by Reeve Clerk to be engrossed in the bylaw books. May I have a mover? Counselor Wright, Counselor Whitfield, all in favor? And carried. Number 7, adjournment. The Council of Township of North Huron agree that there being no further business before council, that the February 26, 2025 budget meeting be hereby adjourned at 11:59. Mover, Counselor Van Heersen, Counselor Wright, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.